Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. So, I want to start off by saying, yes, there is a post on my Facebook that shows what Havana syndrome is. What is Havana syndrome? When there is a type of direct energy weapon that could be pointed at someone that will cause some kind of headache or some kind of feeling of wooziness, like, oh gosh, dizziness, vertigo. I remember even back in 2014 when I arrived here the second time in Ohio, and it was really snowy, and I was riding in the car with people, and I was, of course, working with the holistic industry, taking all the diatomaceous earth and the ginger and honey and all that stuff. And I remember feeling dizzy driving in the car, and I'd be pointing at the skies going, look, the chemtrails are causing all my sickness. So I had something to blame back then. But lo and behold, most likely it was because of the frequency changes. There were frequency changes even way back in the 80s with all the El Nino. Okay, I mean, you can't assume that frequency changes were just something so recent. And now that we're like finally awake to it, that it does exist, and weather modification has been happening for years, then you can look back even 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and realize that weather modification has always happened, and frequencies has always been something part of the landscape. And that's also why people deal with cancer, disease, and chronic illness. So yesterday I actually felt a major headache come on, and it was like I had to really grab my head, because that's what it was like when I'm looking at even some of the photos from 12 years ago, when people were warning us about the grid and how some of the frequencies, not just Wi-Fi, but potentially even CERN and HARP, that could cause frequencies that make people grab their head. And yesterday, it was one of those days where I actually grabbed my head. The heart beat faster first. I was on the couch looking at stuff, and my heart was beating faster. And then I felt this headache come on that was just so quick, and I had to grab my head, and I was like, geez, I really felt the pain, and then I had to go to sleep. And so I slept until about 5. And then I was just like, okay, everything is fine. I mean, that's what it's going to be like. Okay, the sun's coming through. And so a person who is so tied in with the medical holistic system, every single time they would feel a reaction from a frequency change, a catalyst to growth, a catalyst to particle acceleration, then they go and treat their disease. What do I mean disease? Disease could be just one symptom of a headache that just comes on and then goes. And then you have to go treat it with, well, people treat it with medical stuff and holistic stuff, but what I do is I just go to sleep and feed. That's it. And so disease is when you feel not your usual self. When you're walking down the street and then you sneeze, that could be called a disease, but disease called sneezing, well, you don't call sneezing disease. Disease could be something that is like a 1 second feeling of unease to something that is a chronic condition, and then warrants eventually rest in peace. And so, so when I woke up, I woke up, and my husband came home last night, and now he's sleeping in a little bit because he's going to leave a little bit later on today, and that's great. And so we ate together, and then I just went to bed, and it's a little bit hot at night. But yesterday I was looking at my Facebook and all the different people that are on it, and then of course looking back where I came from, like Silicon Valley. And then I look at people that are in the J world that used to be in the J world a lot, way back when it was all about the cures and Jilly Juice used as a cure, and the fear of tap water, where you're buying distillers to distill your water, to separate the minerals from the hydra. And I'm like, what's the point of doing that? What's the point of distilling your water? So I stopped distilling my water. I drank tap water. Now I drink purified water with my coffee, because I don't want my coffee machine to get all crusted up with the elements. And so that's why I drink bottled water now. But I could drink tap water, no big deal. But anyways, I see people that from in the J world, or that used to be, okay, donating to all these different cures. Like donating to all these different foundations that go and try to do more research for cures. Now you're going to understand what a cure is. A cure is something that you can't live on. It's not something that is long term. And there's always antibiotic resistance. Okay, cures are basically working against the body's natural defense system. And so why would someone in the J world who claims to kind of understand where I'm coming from, maybe they don't, be donating money to these foundations that are looking for more cures to cause more disease? Because there'll be antibiotic resistance, another evolutionary disease that will then warrant another fucking cure when it becomes out of control. You see, evolution in disease is not a bad thing as long as you know how to deal with it and feed it and release the demons. But people don't in the medical holistic system. They close up their system and they try to find something else to go and neutralize it for a second until that body rejects that neutralization and the growth then redoubles its efforts. And so it just like shocked me, but not really, because I know most of the people in the Jilly Juice world that were the early adopters, they decided not to evolve with me. They decided just to go their own way and go back into the system where they came from. They didn't want evolution. They wanted to be trendy. They wanted another thing to dabble with, claim they were part of the Jilly Juice world, and then they're going to go right back into the fucking system again. And that's a lot of Silicon Valley. And so I'm going to read this because I really need to cover it. Because you really have to see where my emotion comes from. And so you were part of the Jilly Juice world, and you are still giving people money for another cure. Are you freaking kidding me? Have you not learned a damn thing about cures? And so this is where I'm just going off, because this is why we're in a depopulation agenda. Because you're selfish parents, trendy parents. You can show them another way, but their intention all along was to find another way to pass away pain-free. Well, climate change will help you. It's called died suddenly. And so every time you go and service another organization with money to go find another cure, what you're doing is you're asking people to fund something else to give people a pain-free way out of this world. So you're not saving anyone. But if that was your intention all along, that the J Juice was another cure for you, then I guess it's like, okay, that was your intention. But I'm going to let you know that these cures don't save people's lives at all. Food and release is what save people's lives. And so while climate change will help you, it's called a died suddenly. And so be careful what you wish for. We thank you for your service, right? This is the new WW2. But people are given the choice, and it is done in as humanely as possible, if possible. What is done? Giving people the option to end their life using all the different cures and all the different detoxes, all the different pills and powders and all the different drugs, because they can't deal with the actual evolution of life. They can't deal with their life, literally. And so the whole J world is about turning that whole system upside down and giving people the option to get their life back. And if you don't want to use the medical system to petition them to help you refeed, which we discovered the last couple of days what refeeding is, because everyone's starving, then you can do it on your own. Okay, but if you can't do it on your own, then it's going to take a very savvy patient and a very savvy lawyer to go and force the hand of the medical system to give you guys an option to refeed yourself and give you the time off to get your fucking life back. And so run away from all the cures if you want to live. Giving to organizations so people can pass away pain-free is misleading. Or else why would the system need another cure? The fucking cures don't work and people are still suffering astronomically. And you have never done a thing to help your community except perpetuate, sustain, and maintain disease and suffering. If the cures worked, you wouldn't endlessly keep raping other people's bank accounts for more money, riding on their sympathies and guilt for sustaining disease. You're trying to fund absolution when there is none. Death is the absolution for those that rely on cures. And that's what people are doing, especially in Silicon Valley when they have so much money and they don't know what to do with it. Okay? Charity is a rich person's game for their own absolution, and the poor man does not know any better. Oh yeah, you watch all the rich people that are like, oh look, I'm donating to this charity, to this charity, to this charity, and they're all like, oh yeah, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. And these poor folk out there that don't know any better, they're like, oh yeah, here, go give to my birthday, go give to this charity, and this charity, and this charity. And what are you doing? You're sustaining more cures for more disease, for more fucking suffering. But that's the absolution for a rich person. Then a poor person want to be like a rich person because they don't know anyone else to emulate. They're looking up to people with money. And then someone goes, well, what is it? No one is high enough to look down upon people? Then stop looking up to people. That's the issue with religious folk, and that's the issue with those that don't think too much of themselves. And so when someone points out that they could actually be as powerful as somebody out there who has money, they're like, oh no, I don't want to change. I don't want to change. How dare you ask me to change and question my own belief system? And so they go back and be all imperious and say, oh, you know what? You're not high enough to look down upon me, to ask me to change. Well, then stop looking up to people. And so that is Silicon Valley. That is the upper middle class way of living, of lining their own coffers. And then they exploit their children for good measure. And believe me, I'm from Silicon Valley. I know, I not only was I exploited, okay, but every child is exploited. Every child is exploited. I don't care who you are. Your child is, but they're all over Facebook. Oh, look, my kid, they graduated from this college. Oh, look, my kid, she's digging a hole. Oh, look, my kid is doing this, this, and this. Every fucking kid on Facebook is exploited by their parents. Okay? And so when you're giving to all these charities and your kid has a disease, you're going to go exploit that kid. So then you get people to give more money because you're using your kid to ride on their sympathies. And then your friends and family are like, oh yeah, I'm a good person. I donated to your cause to help your child do what? Sustain the fucking disease. That's what maintaining kidney diabetes is you're sustaining the disease. You're not doing anything different. And you want to just sustain that disease. That's what's all these foundations, whether it's a Down syndrome, autism, lupus, fibromyalgia, breast cancer, all these different, foundations for cancers and charities for cancers and Run for the Cure, Run for this, MS, lupus, every single one of those sustain the fucking disease. They don't do anything to reverse it or give you any other option besides relatively painful way out the fucking door. And so remember, I came from that world. I lived that world. You have a chance to save yourself. But Silicon Valley engineered balancing both sides of the equation. And so which side do you really stand on? And only you will know. Okay, so it takes someone that's from Silicon Valley to know everything that they do. I lived it. I'm not on the outside making a judgment on another culture. No, I lived the culture. And guess what? I'm here in Ohio living a different culture. I've embedded myself in this culture to understand the culture. I embedded myself in different places to understand the fucking culture. Okay, so I don't speak from non-experience. I speak from experience. I lived so many different lives that people are afraid to fucking live because they don't like change and they don't like diversity and they don't want to learn about anybody else but their own fucking homogenized society. That's where the intolerance and that's where the ignorance comes from. And so I see people in my high school, junior high school class, holding so many fundraisers for biotech companies to develop another cure, another disease. And guess what? My peers in Silicon Valley are whales. What do you mean a whale? They have a lot of fucking money. Upper middle class, probably making upwards of $200,000, $300,000 a year. They have $1 million house, maybe less, who knows? And they're all circulate within each other. They're all patting each other on the back because they're in Silicon Valley and they went to the same high school and all the same friends. And they all make a shit ton of money. And one's like, oh yeah, here, give to my charity, my Run for this, my, charity for this. And so yes, they're giving thousands and thousands of dollars to sustain disease. And then when somebody has to go get oncology because they don't know how to look at cancer in a different way, then they all rally around that person and be like, yeah, be strong, and sustain the oncology. And the person looked healthy when they first went to the oncology center. Like they had their hair, they had their collagen, they had their body, and then they come out of fucking oncology. They look like they aged 20, 30, 40 years, lost all their hair, and then they fucking die 6 months later. That's Silicon Valley. That's where I come from. Those are my peers that sustain, maintain disease, and then they are the examples for the poor people that want to be like them, to go and do the same fucking thing. Those are the cliques in high school, the popular people. The ones that are like, oh yeah, we're not going to let you in because you're different. And they are sustaining all of this suffering. And they're giving money to it because that's what they're nothing else to do but give money to shit. I'm saying money and wealth is wasted on the poor and the upper middle class / rich. Because all they do is fucking waste money, give money to disease, get absolution, and then parade their kids around as if they were just like little trophies. Oh yeah, I can speak from that. I'm here in Ohio and I see everything now. Once I've got out of that fucking situation, now I can be on the outside looking in, knowing how that shit works and living it. There you go. And so the rich maintain disease and the poor sustain it. How many people in my high school class, junior high class, are willing to take a stand and risk their standing in the community? Not many. Social capital is too important. How many of my peers in Silicon Valley work for major Fortune 500 companies, part of CNN and Fox, and other mainstream media entities and alternative mainstream entities? Many. But do you think they'll go against their guys and girls they play golf with or sell homes to or risk not getting the ultimate play date? How many people in the conspiracy world who would work for Alex Jones question even the holistic system of supplements? Do you think Luke Radowski is going to question anything? You think anyone in the Alex Jones world is going to ever question anything they've ever done? None. Nope. The world is a stage of money and greed. It is plainly obvious. And so I thank you for your service. I hope a few of you hang around and keep me company because their kids will be doing the same thing over again. And watching history repeat is fucking annoying. Okay? Because you know when the parents do all the same shit, the kids are taught the same way. Right? Just work yourself to death. Give money if you can't, if you don't want to change the world, just give money to organizations that do the same thing, sustain and make disease even more stronger. And then DIE, happy, whatever the hell that means. But maybe, I guess nowadays, it's a died suddenly. You won't get the luxury to get cancer, to go and torture somebody with more cures, and so they suffer even more. Now you get the luxury of dying suddenly in this day and age. And so the J rule is all about a call to action without violence. No more marches and caveman bullshit. Intellectual call to action, which means that we know that all the diseases is because people are starving. All of them. Is there a wing in the hospital? Is there a doctor that's willing to reverse everything they did to their patient? You, as a patient of either the national healthcare system in the United Kingdom or your insurance company and the hospitals that you go to, are you willing to ask your doctor to reverse everything that they've ever done to you? To now, time to get over all the food allergies, all the salt allergies, all the different allergies, and monitor not only your electrolyte levels, so that way you make sure that you get enough salt and sodium in your diet, and you get enough sugar, and then you understand your alimentary canal, from your mouth to your fucking anus. And so instead of demonizing the doctors and nurses, you hold their feet to the fire and hold them to account and make them reverse everything they ever did to you and help you and teach you how to release those demons. Because even the nurses in these nursing homes that have to go and pull the shit out of these people who don't have an immune system to push it out, they know exactly what they need to manipulate in the anus. They can teach the patients how to do that. Nurses know this. CNAs know this. They do it all the time because how many elderly people cannot push their shit out? That they could die from bowel obstruction. And so, yes, this is what these nurses do. They put on the gloves, get the lube, and they go and dig out the shit. They can teach you all this stuff. I already, gave you guys the opening. I risked my own reputation and all that shit and the ridicule. But that's what's going to fucking save you. It's understanding your elementary count. Open up the system up here and down there. And the nurses can teach you, if not the doctors. And so if you understand how disease works, how microbes do afflict people, then you understand why they wore masks back then in 2020 when the frequencies were raised to such an extent that it caused a worldwide pandemic. First it started in China, and then it traveled all the way across the globe, just like a death ray. Like when you shine light and the strength of the light is stronger when the objects are closer to the light source. And so the strength of the light will determine how much of an instability will happen. And then if that light source then moves across the globe, then you will see countries, continents, cities, and counties become afflicted. And then they become communicable. When you are communicable, that's when the diseases, the old ones like polio and all the different old diseases that were kept at bay are now out there in the atmosphere, floating around, and people are catching each other's diseases that used to be dormant. But the instability woke everything up. That's why they promoted the VACCINESs. Not that it's going to make a fucking difference when climate change is causing so much instability that you're going to have to breathe in the microbes regardless. Does a VACCINES make it better? It just depends on where you are and what's going on. It's not universal. Even masks aren't universal. But that's why people wore them. So shut up with making fun of what people did back in 2020. Because there was a worldwide pandemic. Frequencies, and then you can blame whatever the fuck you want to blame. People blame it on the V's, but everything happened before the V's came out. But then they were blaming the prior V's, like the flu V's. No, I'm sorry. The frequency shift, the sudden climate change, the catalyst, I couldn't tell you. It's all speculation. Remember, everyone's given a story, something to blame, so they feel absolved. But when they told us climate change was going to happen, even Charles Manson was saying there's something going to happen in the future. He knew machines were going to cause things to happen to people in some way. But no one wanted to listen to him because he was pretty crazy. But he was warning people in his own fucked up way. That's the system's messed up way of warning people. It's making them so crazy they tell you the actual truth of what's going to happen in the future, but no one listens because of how crazy and what they were tied to. The Manson murders, the Manson cult. But if you actually go listen to some of the old videos with Charles Manson, he's telling you some stuff. If you can see between all the other bullshit that they put in there to distract you. But that's why they wore masks. So when I see these anti-V people making fun of people wearing masks, well, the reason why, you want to breathe in what people are getting through the injection. Okay. You don't make fucking sense. So yes, people wore masks in 2020 because people were communicable and they had to transition into taking on other people's microbes. So STFU about the masks back then. Seriously, you have no idea how biology and physics work. If I cough on someone, they could catch an aggressive microbe. It is not rocket science. Y'all are afraid of VACCINESs but won't wear a mask. The VACCINESs had what the masks were shielding you from. So please, shut the fuck up. But you know how people are. They have to blame someone. Do I need a mask right now? No, because I am acclimated to the aggressive microbes released during frequency shifts. And if I catch a disease, whatever it is, or develop a disease from high radiation because of climate change, I know exactly how to respond to the disease without further harming myself in the medical holistic energy healing world. I won't be taking ivermectins. I won't be doing any anti-parasitics. I will not do any kind of detox or even doing so much J juice or J juice at all. What do? I go to sleep, I drink water, I eat, and I release the demons the way I have it in my book, and that's it. It doesn't require me to blame someone. It doesn't require me to go and do some harm to myself. It doesn't require me to go and diagnose myself. And so I was challenging the Silicon Valley people who are in Fox and CNN and on all the different alternative mainstream media people, like even in the Alex Jones world that I even met along my travels, to actually expose all this, to go and try to change the hospital system, not work outside of it, but actually change the hospital system and give people an option to live, not make them feel so hopeless that they're going to end up in the morgue and they just want to have a happy time on the way out. And so I said, if no one takes on my challenge to go and challenge what's going on and expose what's going on and try to change the medical holistic system, then the Silicon Valley people and even the Alex Jones people are no different than the Appalachian hillbilly stereotypes in all points in between. All right, so yes, Appalachia has a stereotype. What's the stereotype of Appalachia, Jillian? Okay, well, I'll tell you what it is. Give me one freaking second. I will read you a few things, not everything, because it's a lot. The Appalachian region and its people have historically been stereotyped by observers with the basic perceptions of Appalachians painting them as backwards, rural, anti-progressive. These widespread limiting views of Appalachian and its people began to develop in the post-Civil War. Those who discovered Appalachia found it to be a very strange environment and depicted its otherness in their writings. These depictions have persisted and are still present in common understanding of Appalachia today, with a particular increase of stereotypical imagery during the late 1950s and 1960s in sitcoms. And so common Appalachian stereotypes include those concerning economics, appearance, and caricature of hillbilly. And so you can read that link that I posted, but I wanted to give you that one of the words that really jumped out was anti-progressive. Even Silicon Valley types academics can be very anti-progressive because they can't even question their own fucking belief systems. That's why I'm glad that all of that happened during the Dr. Phil times, and even that Wikipedia page, because you can see how many academics, people from MIT, from all these different high-level universities, someone like a Dr. Phil who is trained in who knows what university he was trained in, you can see them completely shitting on evolution, shitting on new ideas. So you see how narrow even MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, you can see how narrow Yale is, how narrow Stanford, Berkeley, UCLA, all the different universities that were out to fucking chew me up and spit me out. You can see what they did, how they did it. You can see they used a person in hospice who was down to nothing because they starved him out of the system. That poor guy, Bruce Wilmot, was used as a fucking tool. They starved him out so much that nothing was going to help him. Nothing. And they wanted to blame the Jilly Juice for his death when they starved out that patient in the system, plying him with drugs and herbs and extracts and detoxes and all the different diets. You see what academia did? Yeah, that's how fucking narrow academics are. That's how anti-progressive academics are. Back then and even today. Is how many will go up against their own system that they fucking developed. And so if no one takes on my challenge, then the Silicon Valley people are no different than the Appalachian hillbilly stereotypes, and all points in between. And all points in between, the religious folk who can't evolve. I don't care who they are, if they're Hebrews, if they're Catholic, they're Christian, Jewish, Gnostics, Jehovah, Muslim, regular Christian, born again Christian, anti-progressive. And so then you see there's no difference between somebody in academia in Silicon Valley to those, so there's no difference between those who are religious, all about God, and those who are atheist, that have like a million fucking degrees. Now they are two the same people, two sides of the same coin. And so now everyone has a chance to compete on a level playing field. Appalachian folk are hardworking and they eat a very nutritious, balanced diet, and they are hardy folk, of which Silicon Valley types lack as far as balanced intake of food, because they're all into their organic, yoga, energy healing bullshit, playing with your chakras, diets, fasting. Both y'all need to learn from each other. And so, yeah, I just threw down the gauntlet. And so, yeah, what do I mean by both y'all need to learn from each other? Because Appalachian folk need to learn how to bring on some intellect and knowledge, book knowledge. And then the Silicon Valley folks are all about mitigating food and eating like an organic diet. They need to learn how to eat meat, milk, cheese, eggs, fruits, and vegetables, but more meat, milk, and cheese, and release their own demons, build up their body with substance, because people here in Ohio, they're built like brick shit houses. You know why? Because it's the food they eat, and that's why they're not dying as fast. Some are, but it takes it's going to be very difficult to take down an Appalachian folk who lived on meat, milk, and cheese and eggs than someone in California living on fucking bean sprouts and carrots and all about the organic, oh, I can't eat meat shit. And so, yeah, this climate change is going to take out those that are extremely slight and don't have a diverse intake of food, especially collagen and fat and protein. And so, yeah, being sick in this environment needs to be mainstream so you can take care of yourself. And so you will learn, because some of you are discovering the J word, you have to be sick. And you don't really know who to talk to. I mean, how much can you say on my Facebook? I don't want a group of people who are just wailing about their sickness. Because then people are like, oh, Jillian's harming people because she's allowing it to be sick. No, you have every opportunity to figure out how you want to deal with your sickness. And so, well, you will learn not to talk about your evolution to other people who refuse to understand. Many people don't understand sickness is necessary. If you treat every sickness, it won't be a happy ending for you. The outcome after each treatment becomes worse and worse. And you know where that will end up. Every single time you take a pill, a powder supplement detox, you take an aspirin, you take a NyQuil, you are laying the groundwork for not only a died suddenly, but also for oncology, where you have to get, when you have cancer, because your adult cells are so diminishing that your juvenile cells are now becoming this thing that's going to take over. And so every treatment lays that groundwork. And so, my mother was right. It is okay to suffer in a little bit of silence, or say it in places where nobody will recommend you go see a doctor. I'll say it on Facebook. That's why I turned to Facebook. That's why many people need to turn to social media and block people who are extremely aggressive, because that will be your outlet. And then you can be representation with no one trying to virtually treat you. All right? And so climate change is fucking people up, but not everybody feels it. And if they do, they're under the influence. They're either doing cannabis, or they're drinking, or they're doing other types of drugs, or they're taking their supplements and detoxing, even doing Jilly Juice, right? And so climate change is fucking people up, but not everybody feels it until they do. But even then, some people will never admit there is climate change, because they assume that when I say climate change, that it's a natural cyclical thing that the left has put out there to then use as a tool to control your consumption and everything else. Well, climate change means so many different things to so many different people. There's the weather modification, there's HAARP, CERN, and Wi-Fi. There's those that don't even believe it's going on, they blame it on the V's or GMO, and there's others who are like, oh, it's a natural cyclical thing that happens every 10,000 years, And look, they're just using it as a tool to fuck with people's families and their freedoms and all that stuff. So everyone has a place to go and blame or figure out what climate change is. But no matter what, climate's changing, regardless of why you think it happens, where it happens, and who done it. And so climate change is fucking people up, but not everybody feels it until they do. But even then, they'll never admit it. But at least you know. I can't wait for the day people get sick and no one recommends a doctor, right? This is before, well, what kind of doctor are you recommending? A life doctor or a death doctor? Right now, I'm just kind of projecting out there. I can't wait for the day people get sick and no one recommends a death doctor. People just say, go to sleep, eat some food, and relax. You don't have to go to that job. You don't have to go to that party. You don't have to go to that outing. You take care of you. Since that is not mainstream, I will develop an allowance, which means I will develop a space, a world where that would be okay, where it's okay for people to take care of themselves without going to see a doctor, a death doctor, to do more damage to them. Okay, so I'm still under the programming that the death system can't convert to a life system at some point. Sickness is not a curse. It's only a curse when you keep getting it treated. The outcome becomes a curse. But this is what people were told how to show their love and concern, is to keep recommending a doctor. Here's something to give you, a treatment. Here's an herb, an extract, a pill, a powder, supplement, detox, an operation. And that's how they show love to their kids, their friends, their family, everyone on Facebook. And then that's where the train leaves the station. And so you must be stronger than the ancestors and the traditions if you want to live and survive climate change, regardless if you believe it or not, or feel it or not. Just because you treat your sickness doesn't mean other people want to. All right? And so we don't want to end up needing so much treatment that we don't survive the latest treatment, because that's called hospice. When they can't treat you anymore. That's what happened to Bruce Wilmot. They completely treated him out of existence. And then they go and blame the J-World as the one that killed him. No, he has been in hospice for years. It took years for people to be in hospice. We don't want to end up needing so much treatment that we don't survive the latest treatment. That's called hospice, when they can't treat you anymore. And so people's future either is to die suddenly, which will be a blessing for a lot of people who are watching their friends suffer, no suffering, or end up in a nursing home. And then you get to see all the lovely ads of the people going like, yay, nursing homes are great. And you see all the happy people in their wheelchairs. Yeah, okay. How happy are they really? Take the cameras away and you go to day to day. It's not fucking happy in nursing homes. Neither is appealing to me. That's why I don't treat disease. I feed it and I rest, and I don't give into peer pressure. This is why I stay home and I stay safe, and I don't have to wear a mask anymore. And so that's why I say good luck. But by the way, I'm developing a platform where there's a wing of the hospital that does not treat your disease, but they will help you learn your whole alimentary canal so you can stay home and release the demons and eat. But if you have predisposed issues that need to be looked after, they have the infrastructure to support that. That doesn't exist right now. It will take a patient out there to develop that platform. And if you're not strong enough to develop that platform or asking a doctor to give your life back, then people will either do it on their own or they will see a doctor in this system right now and destroy themselves. It will take an amazing lawyer and patient to fight the system of death and give somebody an option for life. Many unevolutionary baby boomers surround me, okay? Remember, they're the most popular generation. So why isn't this happening? Why aren't people taking my cues here, right? Because a lot of baby boomers are unevolutionary. They won't go up against the system they developed, all right? And so baby boomers are like, yeah, whatever, fuck you. I'm just going to live with my little whatever world. So many wild cards are the Gen X's are around me as well. There's a lot of Gen X around me, but a lot of them won't go up against the system again because they're too tied into it, or they haven't gotten so sick where they're getting kicked out. So many wild cards of Gen X are around me as well, and many are suffering, or they're still tied into the system until they get kicked out for disease or a sudden death. But so many millennials who are too concerned with their image and infrastructure will not go up against the system. So you look at all the millennials out there, oh, look what I'm doing, look what I'm doing, look at my boobs, look at my outings, look at my trips. They don't give a fuck. They're not trying to change anything. They're just trying to live their best life. Okay, you were taught by your baby boomer parents and some silent generation that are ending up in the nursing homes. And so it'll be interesting to see who finally becomes David against the Goliath, the death system. I wish I could do it. Oh, believe me. But I don't have enough medical records and treatments. And whoever does go up against the system, could they survive the stress and the ridicule? Because, people will ridicule people who are trying to save their own fucking life. That's what happened in the J world. You watched all the different academics ridicule SALT, ridicule all these things. And you are brave enough to question the whole fucking system, not half of it. So that's the thing. It's going to take someone who's sick, who's strong enough to go up against the death system to ask the doctors and the nurses to start the refeeding program. There should be an actual wing in the hospital called a refeeding clinic. And then they will determine if it's an inpatient or an outpatient thing. And you'll pay your regular premiums as if you were paying to be destroyed through all the surgeries and the detoxes and all the different protocols, prescription drugs. And again, a holistic professional is not equipped to do this. So don't even ask your holistic professional to start a refeeding program, because they are not equipped to deal with heart attacks, strokes, people who are drowning in their own mucus, who need help to go through that transition process. Holistic professionals are not someone you go to when it comes to refeeding. It will be a fucking doctor and the nurses and the hospital system to reverse everything they ever did, and they have to watch and monitor. But do not ask a holistic professional to do this. Again, they are not equipped. No matter how much you say, oh yeah, I can help you do that. I can do what Jillian's doing. No, they fucking can't, because they don't have the knowledge to understand the whole immune system, and they don't have all the equipment, and they don't have the licenses to do that again. It'll be up to a fucking doctor and Rockefeller Medicine to switch things around, not a fucking holistic person. Don't ask them, because they will destroy you. They're like, oh yeah, well here, take this herb, take this tincture, do this whatever, do this prayer, do this meditation. Here, take some Jilly Juice. And so just questioning big pharma and not holistic energy people and not holistic energy healing peoples is not enough. That's half-assing everything. Okay? Just because some holistic person questions big pharma is not enough to be like, oh yeah, I'm doing something. No, you're just using them as a fucking tool so you can get market share. I know how the holistic system works. I know some of these holistic professionals that circulated these articles that big pharma destroyed these holistic doctors so then they can get everybody all radicalized. I know there's lawyers out there that got so mad at people for taking the V's and were shaming parents for taking V's way back in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. They developed a whole campaign to make people so afraid of the V's and everything else. And so the holistic system can be just as bad as the medical system, because they play the same fucking game. Fear, absolution, no redemption, and remedies, and eventually surgeries, palliative care, hospice, and then the morgue. Because look at all the holistic people out there. They're starving, they're aging out, and they're promoting very non-substantial food. They're not willing to take on the weight and all that stuff, because you have to in this environment. It's all thermodynamics. You cannot get away with just eating one or two ingredients. Spicy fucking food. And so it's not enough just questioning big pharma and all the energy healing people. Okay, it's not enough. You need to question everything. That's why I can only suggest potential options for people. And a good fucking lawyer will find a case and a client, and then it's game on. And I will cheer from the sidelines, because you don't need me. I remember when I was with Landmark Education, I took most of the courses that were available at that time. But there was one course that I took, and it was a series called the Self-Expression Leadership Program. It was about developing a project and giving it away to somebody. where you don't take any of the credit, you don't take, you're just there to develop the question, develop the platform, and then let somebody else run away with it. Well, actually, I'm fulfilling my SCLP project, because I can't be the one to go up against the medical system and switch around from death to life, because I'm not a patient. I don't pay the insurance premiums. I'm not undergoing any treatment, and I don't have any diseases. I know how to manage all of this climate change and stuff. And so it's going to take a patient who is dealing with some kind of disease and knows that they have a lot of food allergies, a lot of food intolerances, salt intolerances. They're under massive amounts of medication, and they've had many surgeries. To be like, okay, doctor, I want you now to help me get back on the food supply, overcome all these allergies, monitor the process, encourage me to get me through the process, monitor all of my vitals during this process. And if the doctor goes, no, we can't do that. We don't have the infrastructure, the equipment to do that. And you can develop a case and say, you did harm to me. You violated the Hippocratic Oath. You butchered me. Even though I was under anesthesia, you butchered me. You caused all of my different issues because you never gave me another option, which is understanding the release process, opening up the system. You always shut down my different orifices from releasing or taking things in, and you've sustained the food allergies. And so then a lawyer is going to be like, okay, yeah, everything's about how you characterize doing harm to people. The Hippocratic Oath. A lawyer. But then, a lawyer can develop arguments just like I did. Okay? And then there's under duress. When you're told that you have to get a surgery, you have to get oncology, you have to get all these different treatments, or else you're going to die. That's psychological arguments to compel someone to make choices that they wouldn't ordinarily make in different circumstances if they actually knew what the outcome would be. Well, what's the outcome? You're causing not only trauma to that person's body, but they're going to be in pain later on. You realize that the body wants to become whole again? And it needs the food to do that? And so that surgery, that transplant, all that stuff actually did harm to that person because you sold them like a panacea. Oh yeah, just because you showed them the insert, showed them that there could be complications, but you rode on their fear. And lawyers know this, how fear is used to compel people to make choices that are not good for them. I don't know what the statute of limitations are, but again, a lawyer would have the whole fucking world as our platform. And you can get people's stories of how they were forced into surgery, forced under the knife, forced to take treatments because the medical system did not want to offer the other side to it. But why didn't they? Why don't you ask them? And so I give it away to some very discerning patient with some really aggressive, awesome fucking lawyer. And I'll tell you, you will make a name for yourself. You make a name. When you go up against a system like the medical system, but first you have to ask the system. If they don't grant you what you asked for, to give your life back, because remember the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. A lawyer would know how to figure that out. A good fucking lawyer. A lawyer that's brave enough to go up against a huge system. And there's a lot of lawyers out there that go against the system. How many will go up against the medical system? Assuming the medical system does not grant that person's request. Okay, and so a good fucking lawyer will find a case and a client, and then it's game on. And I will cheer from the sidelines. You don't need me. You have my book. It's pretty cut and dry. You need the food, you need a release, and you need someone to monitor your vitals during that process so everyone feels okay. Because of how much fear the system put into people about symptoms. They have to undo everything they did to people. And so you must understand refeeding. The hospital system knows about refeeding. You as a patient must fight for your fucking life. If not, thanks for your service. And so Generation X, you are a wild card. Boomers have an issue with evolution. Millennials are too worried about social capital. and silent generation, they're in the nursing homes. And so really it's up to the Generation X. You guys are the wild cards. How many Gen X are too worried about, I don't know what? How many Gen X are just wondering what they can do to make a difference in the world? That they're tired of the same bullshit? I don't know. We'll see. And so you want to provide evidence and build a case against a system of harm done to you and your kids if they don't help you regain your life through a refeeding process? All your medical records are the proof. All your past surgeries, all your prescription drugs, and the diets they led up to your situation. And you were never given a choice, really. Looking at the inserts in the back of the bottle is not enough of a choice. When you're told if you don't do something, you'll die, when you're making choices under duress, how can that be somebody making a sound choice? How many people have been forced into operations and surgeries and other things because they were told they would die if they didn't do it? And now they're fucking suffering. Now they're suffering. They're losing mobility, they're losing life force, they're losing their will to fucking live because of that kind of psychological manipulations compelling people to do harm to themselves through the medical system. And the anesthesiologists are the loopholes. Because if you don't feel it during the process, yeah, you feel it afterwards and you deal with the ramifications later on. Right there makes the contract null and void, and maybe a case as a lawsuit. Lying by omission is still lying. It's up to the medical system to correct itself. It's up to the doctors to correct what they did to people. They must employ the nurses to be on board. A lawyer would know exactly how to work this. A good fucking lawyer. If I was a lawyer, I would do this, but you can only study one thing at a time. And I'm not really greedy. A tiny piece of the pie, what do I mean? If you have to use me as a consultant, fine, I could tell you, yeah. They could have done the refeeding part of it. They could have help them blow their nose and condition them to deal with blowing their nose. Condition them to release the demons, understand the sphincter. Because CNAs in nursing homes dig out shit from elderly people all the time. They know that if you don't dig out that shit will not only cause a lot of uncomfortableness, but also bowel obstruction and potential death. And so CNAs know this. So do the doctors. There's always a doctor on call or in those nursing homes, managing people's situations and manually manipulating their orifices because they never taught them way back in the beginning how to fucking do it. And so, and I'm not greedy. A tiny piece of the pie is what I'm after when you think about it, but that's about it. Even then, the ball is in your court, sharks. I'm talking to all the lawyers. There is money to be made if you know how to position this. Lawyers, you are in a unique position to save the fucking world. Literally. You've been sucking on the teat of the world for such a long time. Maybe now you and the doctors can redeem yourselves. And so what is duress? The act of using force, false imprisonment, coercion, threats, or psychological pressure to compel someone to act contrary to their wishes or interests. Just because that's the only thing available doesn't mean that your psychological manipulations was correct. And now people are suffering. Remember, voluntary surgery is doing harm to people. I don't care if they're under the influence, using psychological pressure to compel someone to act contrary to wishes or interests. None of these surgeries were necessary. But you psychologically manipulate people into doing things against their body's wishes using psychological manipulation called fear. Taking antibiotics is taking something against your life. That is doing something contrary to the wishes and interests. Okay, and that's also taking all the herbs and the detoxes and the extracts. When you're taking away somebody's symptoms and pain, you're taking away their life. When you're withholding food from them. You see, so now you see not only the doctors and nurses are doing this in the system, but also mothers to their children. Also people all over Facebook. Don't eat this, don't eat that. It's poison, it's poison. Blah, blah, blah. Here, look at my organic garden. It's all over. You're seeing now everyone doing harm to each other. But you know where it originated from? The medical system, who then bled into the holistic system. Do no harm is the Hippocratic Oath, and the whole medical system has done harm to people. Look at the nursing homes and the morgues, and all the people suffering under the influence because they're suffering. All right? And so, now when the frequencies are turned up, I have a slight headache, heartbeat fast. If you like, it's like you're grabbing your head because of the frequencies. And so I just keep feeding, resting, and everyone else will have a predisposed issue come up. And sometimes I get hives, okay? But I hope people choose wisely. I hope they do. And so even if I treat my body and force it not to feel stuff, like people are like, why don't you go and hang out with people if you don't feel like it? Why don't you go take something so you don't feel stuff? Well, maybe I can probably afford to do that every once in a while because I don't go out very often. But I know I'll have to pay for that later on. That when I take something so I could feel a different way and not deal with releasing the demons or taking on substance, then the body will go and ask you to deal with it again later on, and it could be worse. But I could probably handle it. But I don't want to go out too often if the climate's changing that aggressively for me to go and take something every single time I feel something so I can go and hang out with people. So even if I treat my body and force it not to feel stuff, in this environment, a major diagnosable condition will develop. Then it's aggressive aging, morbid obesity, or complete emaciation. And then no tolerance for change because the pain will be so great. People will welcome dying suddenly. I'm not doing that. I will not sacrifice my life so I can fit in with a bunch of people who are already too far gone and don't even know it until they die suddenly. So I suffer with the change in climate, and I eat, I relax, I sleep, I release the demons, and life is great, I guess. And then I don't consume very much as far as material goods and selling an image, because now my humanity is back. I will not be tempted to treat any kind of uncomfortable feelings when the climate does change. And it has been changing a lot lately, regardless if you believe it or not. And so the trend that I'm on, for every year, every sickness, every feeling of uncomfortableness that is not treated, adaptation to evolution and climate change becomes easier and easier. It was horrible last year. It was horrible the year before. As far as dealing with the July 4th sickness, it's better this year. Everything is all relative, right? Next year when the climate shifts again, even more so in between now and July 4th, because Halloween, Thanksgiving, September, the hurricane season, all of that. And then January 1st, you're going to see major climate shifts, aggressive ones. Next year is going to be even worse. So next year when the climate shifts again, even more so, I will be able to handle it. And I will. And so when you're not cured, the energy in the environment still cannibalizes the person. Okay, so those that are not feeling shit, they're skinny, and they're on their detoxes, food medication, think everything is poison. When you are cured, the energy in the environment will still cannibalize you. That's thermodynamics. No real evolution, no real intake. It's like being constipated with anorexia. That's the world today. People who hate change are anorexic, constipated people. They have to be, because eating food is painful and releasing is painful. Carrying Mr. Hanky is more painful. Don't let Mr. Hanky turn into multiple personalities torturing you. And so people who are really obese, they have a lot of Mr. Hankies in them. People who are really skinny don't have any chance to go and convert themselves. But when you are really obese, when you think about morbid obese, you have a few personalities. You have probably three personalities that could be let go. And you're going to have to fight for you as you let those demons go. And so morbid obesity, and it's happening, people are dealing with so many different spirits in their body that eventually they're all going to go and destroy the person eventually. And then when someone's skinny in an environment like this, they won't be able to handle energy conversion. And so carrying Mr. Hanky is more painful. Don't let Mr. Hanky turn into multiple personalities torturing you. All right? Release the demons safely and effectively. And so I will be very seasoned and conditioned for aggressive instability. And so right now, everyone is in a conditioning process. They are in the games. If you wait to pack on the pounds, a skinny person, if you wait to not treat sickness, which means if you're treating sickness all the time, you may not survive procrastination. Again, if you're strong enough for this environment and you're not under the influence or under a doctor's care, some people have to condition themselves to get up to that level. So there's Appalachian guys out here that don't feel shit. They're big bones, they're strong. Like, I don't understand Jillian, where she's coming from. Well, I was raised in California. I've had so many pills, powder supplements, and detoxes. I was in the holistic world and the allopathic world. I've been to the hospital maybe a few times because of antibiotic allergies. I have a lot of fucking damage that I have to fix within. I have to feel shit. My body has to release the stuff. So I have a lot more to catch up to those Appalachian folk who can handle these crazy climate change is because they were raised in snow, raised in hot summers, raised with Appalachian food, very substantial food. And I'm raised with chicken and fish and hardly any sugar, hardly any salt, all mostly veggies and everything else. I have to catch up to the people over here, and I'm doing it. But believe me, I wish I was an Appalachian dude sometimes. They are very strong people, and it takes a lot to shut them down. Like literally, it takes a lot to shut them down. I wish I had my husband's body, because I feel when the frequencies shift, my back hurts sometimes. I feel the pain, but I just feed it and I rest and I know what I'm dealing with, and I don't overdo it. And remember how skinny I was when I was doing so much of the Jilly Juice. I was as skinny as some of you who out there who were just eating mostly vegan and vegetarian out of your garden. Well, I ate the meat, the milk, the donuts, the junk food, meat, the milk, everything. So I had enough body to do the energy conversion when my body had to release the demons and had something to rely on, a reserve. I could survive. That's how you're going to fucking survive this. But I can tell you, many people will not survive this because they can't handle taking on the pressure. There's too much pull in their current world that they won't be able to evolve. Their friends and family won't let them to evolve. And I see it. But I know what I'm up against. But I'm just planting a seed out there for those that want to make a name for themselves in law, in the medical system. And I'll tell you, if I had the not the medical background, but the legal background, and I can find someone that is a great representation, that doesn't have crazy ass things in their past, that the medical system can go and say, use that as a tool to destroy them. Oh, I'll go up against fucking Rockefeller medicine and the holistic world. But I would have to be tailored to that person's specific situation. I couldn't make this a total social thing. But right now I am making people question the holistic world and the allopathic world and the energy healing world. I'm making you question. If you can't question it, then thanks for your service, because you won't survive climate change. You won't. Because it will take you feeling like the last couple weeks, I felt like I was pregnant. My belly was so bloated. My face was bloated. I was constipated on some level too. Yeah. I didn't have the same feeling of the mycoplasma like last year. But my body definitely went through an energy conversion. I had to sleep. I had the headaches, the hives that weren't just on my chest, but they were like all over different places. There's still some residual shit that's releasing. And the growth happens and all that stuff. We'll see what happens next year. But every year is going to get better for me. Every year for people who don't deal with their demons will get worse for them. Some will not have the luxury to get cancer, disease, and chronic illness and redirect. Other people will just die suddenly. So they'll have a great life. Look what I'm doing. Hey, no, I don't feel any pain. I don't feel nothing. I'm not eating as much. I'm not drinking as much. I'm just, look at my little healthy tiny food that I have here. And then one day, we'll see later on, they didn't survive in a frequency change. Their heart couldn't handle the frequency change. Died suddenly. That's what many people are facing. I tried to warn you.